All right, and let's bring Erogenous beef up to the thing.
User was moved to your channel.
Hailing from the north, the south, the east, and the west, all together, it's the great, the illustrious, awesome Erogenous beef. Welcome to the channel, sir.
Thank you, Chaos. It's good to be here.
Well, it's awesome to have you, sir. Let me go ahead and do something I should have done back when we were talking, and that's I need to turn you up, so hold on.
It does help if people can hear me, but I think they really want to hear you.
No, they want to hear you, trust me. Well, sir, it is so nice to have you here. Thank you very much for coming on earlier today and just touching base and stuff. And how are you today, and are you having a good day?
I have been having a fantastic day. Just, got out of work, came home, started talking to some interesting people online. This guy called Chaoschunk, and now I'm going to continue doing that, and it's something that I love doing.
Awesome, that's great. That Chaoschunk guy. I've heard some really bad things about him. Something like
I know. I hear you want to steer clear if you're at a party.
Exactly, and he has an alter ego or something called Chinarino. He has named his second chin Chinarino. Did you hear that?
I had not heard that, but thank you. I'm gonna have to use that in the future.
Yes. We're gonna just jump right into things because that's kind of like how I like to do things. Okay, so the very first question we always ask people is quite simply, "What is your favorite pie, sir, and why?"
Now, personally, I am very partial to a savory steak and ale pie. I get one every time I fly to England. It is a delicious little piece of work. Wonderful, usually some wonderful gravy, some nice tender beef, and as you might imagine from my name, I am partial to the cow.
Yeah, I would say that you're probably a meatitarian, much like myself, correct?
I do enjoy a vegetable now and then, usually underneath my beef.
Slathered in the blood and juices of the beef, correct? It
The good
adds
old
to the
meat
flavor.
sauce.
Yes,
Exactly.
okay. And so you said that it was a something and wine. What was it again?
A steak and ale. So they make a beer batter in the gravy, and they cook the beef in that. It makes it nice and tender. It's really fantastic.
Oh, I bet, man. I'm gonna have to try that. You need to send me one. Can you send me one?
I'll see if FedEx can get you one in time.
Yes, I would love to try one of those. That sounds mighty delicious, sir. So why don't you tell us what mod is it that we're talking about today? What is this that you do?
So I've heard of this little mod. It's called Big Reactors, and what we do is, or what I do at Big Reactors, is we make reactors. It's you put a bunch of blocks together, you get some power out, and hopefully at the end of the day you have fun discovering the best way to get power for you. Maybe it's a smaller big reactor, and maybe it's something that takes up 18 chunks and crashes the server every time you turn it on.
Yeah, crashing servers. That's bad, okay?
People have fun all kinds of different ways. I try not to judge.
I hear you. All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do? Where are you currently at? Are you married? Do you have children? Do you have pets? Just go into like the last, say, 400 years of your life.
Oh, that's a pretty long story, but it would go back a lot farther than that if you really wanted to start at the beginning. As Sagan said, if you want to make an apple pie from scratch, you have to first create the universe.
This is true. So if you want to start at the creation of the universe, you can, or if you just want to go 400 years back, that's fine too.
Well, let's skip to the interesting parts, which is pretty much now. But, so what I'm actually a professional programmer. I have made video games professionally for the past 10 years. Before that, I did all kinds of other software that was a lot less interesting. But so yeah, I'm a programmer, trade and training. I have loved video games pretty much my entire life. One of my earliest memories is standing on my grandfather's lap, playing on an Apple IIc, back when screens only had two colors, black and green.
I remember this. I remember those days.
Like Math Blasters and Oregon Trail and all kinds of other
Oh
things.
yeah.
Dying of dysentery over and over because I didn't know what dysentery was or really how to do anything aside from hitting the enter key. But I like to think I've gotten better from there.
So I'm guessing that makes you late 30s, early 40s.
Early 30s. Oh, early 30s. I'm 33.
33. Okay, gotcha. Because I actually played.
I meant it was back there.
I actually played that game in grade school. So that kind of dates me a little bit.
I think I think the Oregon Trail was required playing if you were a kid who grew up anywhere in the 80s or 90s.
This is true. All right, so continue on, please.
But yeah, so I grew up on video games. I started playing video games online very early. So I was fortunate enough to have an internet connection in '93, back when it was when you actually had to pay by the hour. So I played a lot of text-based MUDs, and a lot of these were fairly complicated simulation-y MUDs, which kind of should give you a hint of where my gaming tastes lie. Simulating like space flight in text and simulating societies in text. Played Alan Lenton's Federation for a long time, and had to stop that when I once ran up a $300 phone bill.
Oh, good God.
Parents did not like that one.
Oh, good God, I bet.
But then eventually, flat rate internet became a thing. Started playing a lot of MMOs, and that's kind of what I decided what I wanted to do with my life, which was to make those things. Want to make video games. Went to school, played a lot of video games in school, did a couple years of video game journalism. I mostly spoke to folks in the MMO industry for F13.net. We're no longer active. Don't go bother. Don't bother.
Okay, don't go bother.
We don't exist anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then that got into the industry and turned the journalism down, turned the programming up. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. Since
So are you professionally trained in programming? Do you have a degree? What degree do you have? Where is it from?
Yeah, so
Cracker
I
Jack
got a
Box?
Bachelor of Science in Computer Science.
Okay.
Did my 4-year degree. Kind of eyed the idea of doing a master's degree, and I was like, I should probably pay off these student loans first. And then I just was like, well, I'm having fun actually making video games. I don't need to go back and study any more programming.
Right.
That's not to say that you shouldn't. I think actually I've met a lot of people who have gone out and gotten master's degrees, gotten PhDs, and that knowledge is very valuable, but I don't think it's necessarily a requirement.
So what is your MMO pedigree? Where does it start? And give me the whole lineup.
I really can't name too many names. They put it in our contracts that we're not allowed to talk about that publicly.
No, MMO pedigree. Your MMOs.
Oh, my MMO pedigree.
Yeah.
So the first MMO, if you discount the text stuff,
Right.
I think the first MMO I ever played was Neverwinter Nights in '94 on AOL.
Oh yeah. Okay.
This is one that was like, remember the old Ultimos where you like hit a key and you moved forward one square and there were 3
Yes.
walls that it rendered?
Oh.
It was
oh,
pretty
yes.
much one of those, and there were theoretically other players in there, but you never really encountered them. But like the first serious graphical MMO I ever played was Ultima Online.
All right.
I had a great time playing Ultima Online.
Oh yes.
Trying not to get killed as you ran naked through the wilderness to get back your stuff.
Right. Right. All right. So what's
Yeah.
after that? What's the next MMO? Go through all the MMOs
next
you've
MMO,
played.
I never really got into EverQuest, unfortunately. I hear you were a big fan of Dark Ages of Camelot.
Yes, I was. Yes.
I played a little bit of that. I played more Shadowbane back when that was in beta.
I remember that. Yes.
And then I actually played a lot of little boutique games, like A Tale in the Desert. And I played, what was it? There's one called, I think it was called Mankind Online. Or no, it was just called Mankind, which was actually one of the first real-time strategy games, MMO real-time strategy games. Which is a genre that you may notice does not exist anymore.
Right. It doesn't.
It's not. I don't think the form really lends itself, but it's still kind of fun to control 400 dudes as opposed to 1 on the screen.
Right.
When
I
you're
agree.
playing with
Yes.
a whole bunch of other players.
Okay.
Tale of the Desert's a non-combat game, all about building in the desert. You build pyramids, you build a society, create your own currencies and things like that. Again, very very small. I think it peaked around 1,500, maybe 2,000 subscribers.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah.
Played some World of Warcraft when that came out. I think 1 or 2 people might have heard of that.
That World of Warcraft. What is that? Never heard of it.
You see, you talk to people, it's like, hey, did you ever play this World of Warcraft game? And they're like, no, sorry, man. Too obscure for me.
Too obscure. Yeah, way too obscure.
Played some EVE Online.
And why would you have played EVE Online? Is there
Yeah.
something there that maybe had ticked you to play EVE Online?
Well, actually, I did play it before I was a developer.
Okay.
Again, can't talk too much about that. They make us sign some pretty hefty NDAs.
I bet. Okay.
But after that, I actually after I got into the industry, I stopped playing a lot of stuff. It's like you pick stuff up and dabble. Like I think I played Age of Conan for about 45 minutes.
Before
bouncing
you
out.
got to the beach, right?
Yeah, I think I got to the beach and I managed to swing the log they gave you about 3 times. Like, all right, I've got the idea behind this game. This was fun. But I think I'm finished now. I'm going to go play something else.
Yes, exactly. I'm looking right at my collector's edition box for Age of Conan. So,
Ooh, collector's edition, one of the originals.
yes, I actually try to collect collector's editions for everything that I get into. My favorite one though is Sony Online. It's dang it, Vanguard, Saga of Heroes. Have you ever heard of that?
I remember Vanguard. Yes.
I truly enjoyed Vanguard. I really liked the side card game that was in it, and it looked like it could have been the most detailed and immersive that you could get into. But the problem is they just crammed you straight into multiplayer, and as soon as you can't complete or you can't level without somebody else, the game's going to die.
Pretty much. I mean, this is the funny thing about massively multiplayer online games, is that if you actually look at it, with very few exceptions, most people play it as a single-player game that they can very easily group with their friends with.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at guilds. Guilds are big and they're powerful and they're the most visible thing, and I think what actually draws a lot of people into the game. Mm-hmm. But if you look at participation numbers, it's vanishingly small.
Right, and it really is, and I think that's one of the things that developers don't look at, is that they think that it's an MMO, massively multiplayer. They think that people do want to play together, but the fact of the matter is people. It's like people don't want to party every single night. They want to party on the weekends, but they want to do their own things during the week, right?
Exactly. It's all about having that kind of variety of gameplay.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of that and accessibility. I mean, you remember like back patching Ultima Online, patching EverQuest was not easy. It took forever. Your internet was slow. It was difficult to talk to people. TeamSpeak back in the day was awful. I think.
Right.
Remember something called Roger Wilco in the late 90s?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like it sounded like you were on a CB radio. In fact, you might have gotten better results trying to get everyone on a CB radio.
This is absolutely true. But those are the burgeoning days of the industry. Back in the day, and those were the golden days.
Yeah.
And before the huge budget stuff came out, and of course the elephant in the room, the World of Warcraft and stuff like that. The juggernaut, I guess, is the word that I'm looking for. So,
I think the interesting thing is, if you look at it now, the way the industry has changed is that the MMO isn't dead. It's just been absorbed. It's been pulled into all the other games that we have now. It's like Dragon Age Inquisition has an online mode and it has persistence.
Right.
Hearthstone has persistence and a community built around it. Like all these things got absorbed into all the other parts of the industry. So the MMO isn't dead. It's just kind of its children are ruling the world now.
But did you ever think that maybe these ones that are adding the online component are maybe doing it like they're adding the 3D component to movies? It's like we're adding it because we know it's a draw, but because we know that that's a segment that we can address, and really ultimately it really doesn't belong in some of these things. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, do you want the cynical answer or not?
Oh, it's cynical. We love cynicism here.
I mean, the cynical answer is, of course, is you look at these things and you look at FIFA, right? And before FIFA came out, before Ultimate Team came out, the numbers of the revenue with FIFA was pretty much a bump at the end of the year, and then nothing.
Right, when they sold the latest version, you'd get a bump,
right. And then they bring out FIFA Ultimate Team, and within and people are like, oh, no one's ever going to play this collectible card game, pay money for cards about football players on it. Who's going to do that? Now, of course, these people never really had baseball cards as a kid.
Exactly.
But and now, from what I hear, the revenue of like FIFA Ultimate Team dwarfs the actual box sales. It's
right.
If you want the cynical answer, the answer is that it's because people buy. It's because people buy things, and also if you have an online component, it's not so easily pirated.
Right. I don't ever think that MMOs are dead. What I think is that they have stagnated, if anything. I do believe that MMOs can continue to strive, and I do believe in the pay model can continue to strive also. It's just that they have to innovate, and they have to innovate beyond what the basically the WoW mold. And the WoW mold has basically been the same for the last 3 updates. You get a whole bunch of new materials, you get a whole bunch of new dailies, you get a whole bunch of new end game content, and basically you build up through your dailies to get the armor, to do the end game content. You go through the end game content to get armor, to get more end game content, do dailies to get more money, to do more end game content, and then boom, here comes another expansion. It's rinse repeat, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But and if you look at it, it costs 7 or 8 figures at least to even begin making an MMO. You've got teams of 100 to 1,000 people plus and plus not even mentioning the live staff and the servers. It takes an enormous amount of money to make one of these things. So iterating on new gameplay is also very expensive. So trying to do both of these things at once is really difficult to get investors behind. It's like before 2008, you could actually get investors to invest in an MMO, and they'd see, oh wow, it's making this much money. We'll certainly make our return. Then the financial crash of 2008, it kind of at the same time you had the rise of social, so all the money went from MMOs to social.
Right, right.
And unfortunately, where the industry does go, where the money goes. It's we all like to be paid. We all have families to feed and rent to pay. So.
Right. I think it's not only
the
social.
We'll see another iteration of MMOs when it becomes easier. When you can have when you don't only have to risk like $50,000, $100,000 to make one of them. And of course, then one of those will be. I mean, look at Minecraft. Minecraft was a guy in his basement, for 4 or 5 months.
Right.
And
exactly.
Now he's one of the richest men in the game industry.
Right. Exactly. And that's yes. But that right there, I almost think that. I mean, that's the ingredient. I mean, that's the draw to these people. They're really looking for that.
Right. It's all about the cost. The cost of iteration and the cost of innovation.
Right. Right.
So I think the whole industry right now, the big thing in the last few years is all the tools going free. As of GDC this year, you can get Visual Studio for free. Mm-hmm. Right, so and that's like the very base. It's like as soon as you have Visual Studio for free, you could theoretically, if you have the knowledge, build your own game engine, ship your own game on it. You can get Blender for free. All the tools out there are free now. And then you've got you've got Source 2, you've got Unity, you've got UE4, and you can go download these and build your game. So the cost, the actual cost of innovation is going way down. And I think that's what's really, I don't want to say save, but I think that's what's going to bring the next real revolution in the game industry is people in the community making cool stuff. Just like we see in the mod scene, people in the community making cool stuff, and suddenly there's a new gameplay paradigm that no one thought of before. So and it becomes a thing.
And I'd love the way that we're going here, and I don't mind going way off topic here because that's what this is about. So, do you think that Oculus and stuff like that is a part of that ingredient that's going to bring us the next wave? Do you think Oculus Rift and more of the immersion actually into the game is part of that, or do you think that Oculus Rift is pretty much just a trinket in a box of Cracker Jacks?
I do want to poo-poo it. Like personally, in my heart of hearts, I don't really believe in the Oculus Rift and in the 3D thing. I think it's like with movies. Like, oh, we're adding an extra dimension. What new stuff can we actually do? So what does it actually add? It actually adds head tracking. It adds the best head tracking I've ever seen. Sure, there's some technical problems there, but I'm not 100% sold on the Rift or any of the other like 3D solutions. That's not to like signal out Oculus. Samsung is doing a thing, Microsoft is doing a thing. All of these. Right. I think actually, that will not be big for gaming. I think that's going to be big outside of gaming. I think you're going to see this used more in the medical industry, and I could actually see it being huge for business travelers. I travel a lot for business myself. And I would love nothing more than to have a HoloLens that I can strap to my face and not have to worry if the guy in front of me is going to recline his seat and bump my laptop closed. Because then I've got my screen is right here in front of me and it's as big as I want it to be.
Right,
so I can have as big of a monitor as I need to do my work and not be constrained to like a 7-inch netbook.
Right. All right,
so I think that's where it's going to start.
Okay. I'm going to go on start with some more questions here, okay?
Please.
What part of the world do you currently live in besides in an airplane? Because I know you spend a lot of time there.
I rent a place in Germany.
Okay.
So my home address is in Germany.
What part of Germany, sir?
I'm actually in Berlin.
Berlin, okay.
If you ask anyone in Germany, Berlin is not Germany. Berlin is a weird little separate country all of its own, because all the weird people who don't fit in Germany move to Berlin. So it's kind of like the arty community. It's what San Francisco was 20 years ago.
So when I was in Berlin, one of the things that I really noticed about Berlin is that it looked very, very, very patchwork. you could definitely tell that the city still has the scars of the war that it had gone through. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, absolutely agree. About 3 months ago, we got a notice from our landlord that they had located an old World War II bomb about 4 blocks away, and so we were not supposed to go to the office for about an hour.
Oh, Jesus.
Because they have to dig it up and remove it. It's a bomb. So you still see the thing about Europe. I mean, I'm originally an American.
Yes.
I moved to Europe nearly 7 years ago. The thing about Europe is that you walk around and you realize that you are in the middle of history. And then you go to the States and everything is shiny and new. Like even our oldest city is like 150 years old. You can maybe find, if you go to historical Williamsburg, Virginia, it's 1645, and then you walk across the street when you're in England. You walk across the street into a pub, and the pub is like, oh, this pub was founded in 1356.
Exactly, and that is one of the things that I loved about being in Europe is that you are actually physically walking through history, and just to turn around and look at the things that you're seeing that have been there. This is the basis for our lives that we live right now, and I loved Europe. The reason I was in Berlin is I went and saw Roger Waters do the wall in Berlin while I was in the military, stationed in Erlangen. So that's that poster.
Oh,
yeah, that's a poster that's behind my left shoulder. I don't know if you're able to see it, but that's my.
It's a little too small on my screen. I've got the stream cut down to a fairly low quality level just to make sure that the audio doesn't go out.
Gotcha. Okay, so the next thing is how did you discover Minecraft? What is it that brought you to the world of Minecraft?
So this was I don't even remember the year. I think it was 2011 or something like that. It might have been 2012. No, it had to be before that. Anyway, I was visiting some friends of mine in Stockholm, and we had gone out for a pub crawl the night before, so I was in pretty bad shape. So I just got up and I couldn't leave my hotel room. It was like one of those like world-ending hangovers. So I crawled to my computer and I can just about sit upright, and I start typing away. And I need to find something to do to kind of like pass some time for a few hours. And some friends of mine are talking about Minecraft on a forum, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's try that out. And I just tried the little free demo. This was back when the creative mode was free and you had to pay for survival. This was I think this was early alpha.
I think that's still the case. I think you can still get creative.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like the early alpha where it was like basically you could play creative a little bit, and then survival you paid €9 for. And so I was in the hotel and like, well, this seems fun. I'll pay €9 for this, and I started playing, and then I think I didn't go to sleep until the sun came up again.
Sucker.
Exactly. I stumbled out of my hotel room at 10:30 looking for like the one pizza place that was still open. Went back to the room and kept playing till the sun came up. So that's kind of how I got started with Minecraft, and opened a little server with my friends at work and kept playing there, and we made what everyone makes. We made like walls and pyramids, and some of my coworkers made a scale model of the Forbidden City.
Oh wow! Okay.
Some of them got pretty hardcore into it. I always kind of liked making systems with it, so I played around with like mine carts, and I built like sky bridges. So because we were playing survival, so we would make sky bridges so that we wouldn't get killed by monsters. So I'd build a bridge. Like, oh, where's your stuff? Okay, I'll build a bridge to that, and it'll be nice and flat. And okay, let me build a minecart system that'll actually get over there. And okay, here's some minecart storage, and here's that. And this was before modding got started. We didn't really have any of that going on.
So what's your biggest build in vanilla Minecraft?
Oh man. Biggest build. Probably. So one time I was this was I think 2-3 years ago. I was laid up home sick, and I just started playing Minecraft for about a week straight. I don't mean like wake up, start playing Minecraft, go to sleep, but pretty hardcore playing several hours a day. And I just built this massive, ugly complex. This was 1.4.6 or so, playing with like ICBM, playing with forestry for the first time, I was playing with Buildcraft, IC2, thermal expansion. Like back when all of these kind of you didn't really think about mod packs. You just kind of crammed as many mods into the thing as possible until it toppled over.
Right.
And I basically just built like a big self-sustaining farm, then like a factory with all the machines. I think I had like a little AE. No, this is before AE actually. This is before Applied Energistics. built like a little auto sorting system with chests.
Uh-huh.
And then of course I just went out and built a huge ICBM complex and blew the hell out of my world.
We had Fireball, who's the current maintainer of AE2, on a couple weeks ago, and AE2, I think, was the major game changer of modded Minecraft. Would you agree?
I have not actually. Okay, I'm going to out myself as like a terrible gamer here, but
Jesus.
I haven't played AE2.
Well, AE1, AE.
AE1, absolutely.
Yeah.
And AE1, the big thing that it did was that it focused on interoperability.
Right.
And this was, 2 years ago, mods didn't work together. Like we were talking about this earlier. Back in the day, you had Buildcraft, you had Industrial Craft 2. You kind of had Greg Tech to add on to Industrial Craft 2, and you had Thermal Expansion, which
Right.
technically was part of Buildcraft. So you had these two kind of competing mods, like pairs of mods or mod groups, but you really couldn't put too much more than 20 mods into a pack before it toppled over and the whole thing died.
Right.
We didn't have mod authors didn't have the tools back then to really work together.
Right.
But when AE came out, which I think was 1.4.7, correct me
Yeah,
if
I
I'm
believe it
wrong.
was right in there, yes.
Yeah, it's like this was a mod that used kind of the standard interface, so it was very easy to interoperate with, but also it focused on just taking one problem and solving it really well and in a really interesting way.
Right.
It solved the logistics problem in a really interesting way. There was also logistics pipes.
Yeah, it really did. It was incredible, and I still remember being introduced to it for the first time because I was doing the big the Buildcraft sorting, where you had the sorting thing that was, and then I would route my stuff
The
to
diamond pipes.
Yes, diamond pipes and route it to barrels, and that was my major storage system. Was this, and I built basically one of my whole things was just building this storage system that was easy to use, and then. After I finally got this all down pat in my brain of how I was going to build this every time, boom, somebody threw AE at me, and I went, "What?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, it was a lot of fun to build those those sorting systems.
Yeah.
But I think once you've done it once, you're just kind of like, all right, now give me AE.
Right, exactly.
It's like you figured out how to do it, and I'm like, okay, I've done it once. It took 3 weeks to actually build. What if I don't actually want to focus on that one problem? What if I just want to have something that'll sort my stuff for me? I can still configure my automated construction farm the way I want it to be.
Right.
But I don't have to deal with the complexity of like, okay, this thing gets routed here. Here's the thing for overflow. Here's the thing for this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I always remember having to make I made a big diamond chest for overflow that things weren't getting sorted in and stuff,
Yep.
and
I always made sure to locate my base near like a surface lava pit, and I just pipe out pipe all the dirt into the lava just immediately. Like dirt? No, seriously, please stop.
Please, yeah, if dirt or cobblestone, right?
And for like the first couple hours of the game, you pipe the cobble into a chest because you're going to use it.
Yeah.
And after a while, you're like, no, okay, we're done with cobble. Start piping the cobble out as well.
Nowadays, you have cobblestone generators specifically for making compressed cobblestone for extra utilities, and I'm sure you probably know nothing about that.
I've heard of extra utilities. So I these days I primarily hear about new mods when they pop up on my issue tracker, and someone's like, "Oh, your thing broke with Someone just said void pipes in chat. I'm just like, no, void pipes did not exist
Right.
back when I was playing Buildcraft. I think they were added on by logistics pipes or something like that.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
I might be wrong. Anyway, yeah, extra utilities. I've heard about that. I've heard about. I know about open computers, but mostly through. I know most of that through GitHub, just from people like saying, hey, there's a bug with this other mod, and you just have to go, oh, okay, let me take a look at this. How does this work? Please, is there a guide somewhere? And then you end up watching some guy on YouTube for half an hour.
Right. Okay. So, if computers did not exist, what would you do?
Honestly, I have no idea. I would probably be some crazy man in the desert trying to pen a novel or something like that.
So really, computers are
I
that
grew
big.
up around computers. Computers have been with me for my whole life, so it's very hard to say what would you be without this key component of your existence.
Right. So do you have any outside hobbies that you do, or is it all pretty much like myself, computer related?
I do outside hobbies, so I climb rocks just for fun.
Okay.
I'm a rock climber. I also I occasionally write short stories, and I've one thing that I've gotten published, a very small short story, not in a big magazine. So I'm not like a published author or anything like that. I don't want to take that claim to fame. but it's just something I like to do is like tell stories, talk to people. I made beer for a couple of years.
Nice.
And yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I also like to dance, so I've done Latin dancing for a couple of years. I also just like put on some cheesy music and shake to it.
So do you have a mannequin that you normally dance with, or is it like a stuffed bear, or?
I try to dance with my iPad.
Your iPad. Okay, gotcha. All right, so hold on. Shad just wrote something in here that okay.
What do we got?
Yeah, I'm reading the list. So what made you think of big reactors? What is the birthplace of big reactors? Why? And so on and so forth.
So the absolute earliest thing was way back in like 1.2, I think. There was a mod add-on for Buildcraft that had like a fusion reactor.
Right.
And the way that it worked is basically it was a single cube that you just kind of plopped down, and then you had to just pump a bunch of power into it to get it started. But once you did, as long as you pumped some water into it, it kept going and gave you more or less infinite power forever. So you can kind of see the lineage from there to big reactors pretty clearly. But what I was always fascinated with was the refineries in Buildcraft. You built this big multi-tank structure with a bunch of pipes going in and out, and you had to figure out how to configure that to make it work. And one of the things that I really loved doing with Buildcraft was building big banks of engines that like were moving and looked powerful. Like,
yes.
Look down at this thing to see like 20 pistons going. You're like, yes, that looks awesome.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, 100%. Yes.
And then you look back at like this one cube that's producing all your power. Like, well, that's not that all that interesting. I also played around a lot with Industrial Craft at the time, and I liked kind of the feel of some of the multi-blocks in Industrial Craft. Like I think Greg Tech has like had like a couple big multi-block machines. And I didn't like all the things about Greg Tech. It's like unfortunately I do have a job, so I don't have so much time.
Right. Yeah.
So I was always like, can I make this something that's a little bit easier to play? Because I was having fun configuring it, but there's only so much configuration you can do with those. You just kind of built it in a pre-prescribed way, and stuff came out. Okay,
right,
so that's.
Right.
And to me, that was like, okay, that's an interesting idea. I like the feeling of putting this thing together and building a house around it. It kind of makes you think about the space that you're in as well, as opposed to just what blocks you're going to put down. And then then I started playing thermal expansion. Same thing. It's like you kind of build a factory with thermal expansion and pipes and AEs. Like you could build a factory, and there's some bits of configuration, like which sides are things going to come in and out of. So then now you're thinking, oh, how am I going to arrange my machines? And I was like, well, okay, hold on. I've always been an enthusiast of nuclear power. I've always found it fascinating.
Right. Yes.
I actually have a tattoo of a nuclear explosion on my back.
Nice.
And so I was like, all right, well, no one's really made a cool solution for nuclear reactors. Like the IC2 nuclear reactor is cool, but it's one block, and then you open up a UI and you play around with the UI to kind of configure it. Well, this is Minecraft. This is a game about putting down blocks.
Right.
Why isn't it that you just can make your nuclear reactor by putting down blocks? Now, I had never heard of Reactor Craft, which people have since told me about, which is also very cool. And then there was also what was it? Universal Electricity. Had kind of like a thing where you built like one nuclear reactor block, and then you put some turbines above it.
Yes, there was the one where you had
all these four things put together, like this early Buildcraft this early Buildcraft fusion reactor, kind of like the IC2 Greg Tech big multi-block machines for the look and feel of it. The thermal expansion idea of how do you configure the inputs and outputs, and how are you going to arrange your thing, kind of defines its functionality. And then the nuclear reactor that I saw in Universal Electricity. Those four influences kind of combined. Just one day I sat down like, all right, I'm a professional game programmer. I can figure out this modding thing. It shouldn't be that hard. So I just sat down, and within like a few days I had a little thing where you just put some blocks into a stack, and then you put like a little power generator on top of the stack, and it just counted how many blocks were under you, and it started making power. And that was like version 0.0.0.0.0.1 of big reactors. And this is back in the 1.4 days, I think this was created, and then 1.5 came out shortly thereafter. So the first public release was 1.5.
So was the squared off design by necessity, or was it because when I've seen, I actually worked at a nuclear reactor. I was doing inventory for critical spares at a nuclear reactor,
Oh,
and
very cool.
yeah, it was freaking phenomenally awesome. But I know that there's, the one thing that's a constant in nuclear reactors, there are tubes that go everywhere. So, did you make it a square block? In which I love, by the way. I think it's awesome. I don't have a problem with it. Did you make it without tubes going all over the place on purpose for simplicity, or is it just that's the way that it turned out?
I think it was kind of a combination of both. So the first thing is I was always concerned about the efficiency of the thing, and it's really easy to quickly detect when a cube is missing inside when a block is missing inside a cube. It's like it's a very defined shape. You don't have to like figure out what the shape of the thing is, and then is that shape valid? It was so it was very quick and very efficient to validate and very efficient to run. But the second thing is, this is Minecraft. This is a game about blocks. Everything is kind of a square aesthetic. So those two things together really defined it. And so when I built the core library, Beef Core, that Big Reactors is built on, I pretty much built it with the idea that everything was kind of going to be some form of rectangular prism. Maybe it's not perfectly a cube, but it's taller or wider. But it's kind of in that same aesthetic.
Did you design big reactors knowing? Did you already have kind of in your head what the min max would be, what you knew was the correct would be a? Did you have a preconceived idea of how people would be designing the reactors to get a min max out of it, or are you? Was it you threw the things out there and whatever they came up with, you were happy with?
So I didn't actually design it to be like, oh, this is going to be the best. This is the way it should be. Because I don't like that idea of like the mod author tells you what's great and you just kind of do what the mod author, you just copy what the mod author tells you.
Right.
It's like that. I don't find that compelling. So what I find compelling is, the thing about Minecraft is that it's all about your configuration. It's about what you want to create.
Right.
And so you can, when Minecraft doesn't say, oh, you have to build a house, the house must be built of 3 pieces of cobblestone and 3 pieces of wood and so on and so forth. It says, oh, here's some blocks. Go put them together the way you want them to. So that was kind of the seed idea. It was always, here are some pieces. These pieces behave in these ways. Go configure them the way that works for you. So that was always my core design philosophy. And when I was designing it, I just kind of designed a system. It's like, okay, this is going to work like this. This is going to work like this. And then you twist, tune it a little bit to make sure that it's not too hard or too easy to get huge amount of power or tiny amount of power. Basically people couldn't hurt themselves too badly, but they also just couldn't do anything silly, and it wasn't just, okay, plop this down here and that's the best. Kind of trying to tune it so there's always trade-offs.
Right. Was there any thought put into containment? Like current reactors have a lot of containment in enclosed systems and stuff like that. Is that what you're trying to do with the coolant around it? And are you just saying that the rods themselves are contained by the coolant around it? Or was there thought put into that? Or was that, again, a way to get more simplicity to make it a little bit easier to understand and do?
Primarily, that was originally a simplicity thing. So the way I originally programmed it was that each one of those fuel rods worked completely independently, which unfortunately absolutely kills performance when you have a massive reactor. So if you go back to like the really, really early versions, like the 0.1, each fuel rod is actually tracking its own heat and radiation, and I simplified that for efficiency's sake. However, I was originally trying to be as simulation-y as possible. So it's like the core idea of very, very simplified core idea of how a nuclear reactor works, that you have this rod of fissile material, of nuclear material, and then the neutrons are bouncing around inside. The neutrons are basically emitted towards it, and they cause the uranium or the other fissile material to fission. That produces more neutrons, which then fly out in random directions. Some of them will hit things inside that fuel rod. Some of them will fly out. And the ones that fly out, sometimes they're too hot or they're too fast, so they need to be slowed down or moderated. And that's how you actually control the rate of the reaction is by either blocking neutrons so they don't propagate throughout all the fuel rods, or slowing down the fast ones so they increase the reaction rate.
Right.
So that was kind of the idea behind. There's a control rod in there that you can suppress the reaction rate with, and the stuff around it was supposed to kind of simulate the moderator of the reactor. And then the exterior shell was basically just a kind of like quote unquote simulating the containment, the first level of containment, that first shell, the reactor vessel, I believe is the actual term for it,
Right.
around the outside.
Okay, so have you seen the various ways that people are automating big reactors? Do you like that? Was it intended for people to figure out how to automate it? And what do you think about those things?
So my policy is that once I've written something, I no longer have really a say in how it's used.
Right, right. Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to automate it, and that's how they have fun, great. I'm helping you have fun. That's all I really wanted to do. Is like you
Right.
should be having fun however you want. It's not my job to tell you how to have fun. I'm just going to give you a toy.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't bother me. Actually, I find it really interesting and really cool that people get so interested in in the reactor that they want to know how it works and how to best automate it, and they figure out these incredibly complicated systems like, retract, build. Some people have built massive computer programs for Computercraft or open computers that automate it with touch screens. It's like, if we raise these control rods and lower these in this pattern, it gives you an extra 0.5% of efficiency. And it's like, that's fantastic. That's cool. Like, someone had a lot of fun writing that program.
That was actually, I believe, Direwolf 20, and that was one of his big claims.
Direwolf 20 has made one, but I've seen a lot of them. I used to hang out on IRC a lot in the Big Reactors channel. These days, I don't have quite as much time.
Right.
But a lot of them were sent to me there, and people tweet them to me a fair amount. And I do look at, when you tweet me something, I do look at it. I look at all my tweets. I just don't always respond.
It may be 15 days later, but you look at all your tweets, right?
It could be 15, 20 days later, but, I'm sorry.
It's funny, Direwolf was all, touting that he made this big program and stuff, and I simply just put an Ender IO energy monitor on there and said, turn on when I need power, turn off when I don't need power.
Sure, why not? However you're having fun.
Yes, exactly.
And some of the the reason that I built the Redstone ports and the RedNet port and the computer port was so people could do these things. I wouldn't put these things in if people didn't want them, and if I didn't think that it was okay.
And thank you. Yeah, those are freaking incredible.
If you don't want that in your mod pack or on your server, just turn. I should put a switch in to turn those blocks off. But yeah, you should be able to turn those blocks off or disable those recipes.
Oh yeah, and it's incredible. We love having those one thing that we love about Karma, and what we try to have in Karma, is a lot of versatility. So you can accomplish goals with many, many different avenues, many different mods, and that's why Big Reactors fit so well into Karma as part of it, is that it is so interchangeable with pretty much everything it does. And thank you for that.
Well, like I said, that's my philosophy. It's like, look, I'm giving you a toy. I'm not here to tell you how to have fun.
Right. So what sort of mods do you suggest to be used in conjunction with Big Reactors? What are some of the ones that's right on the top of your head that should be used in conjunction?
Okay, so I'm going to be showing my age here because I'm going to say things like thermal expansion, which I don't even know if people still use.
We do, yes.
I'm probably leaving out others, but either Computercraft or open computers, you can have tons of fun with those. Thermal expansion, whatever the latest pipe. Like, I know in 1.7.10 there still isn't a mod that implements pipes or ducts the way that thermal expansion originally did. Is there some a replacement for that?
There is the one mod that I cannot believe that has not gained as much traction as it should. It is by far the go-to mod for transporting anything, and it's Ender IO.
Yeah, I've heard of Ender IO. It started out pretty small, but it's gotten very, very large. I got a lot of back in the day, back in the 1.6 days, I got quite a few issues with Ender IO. But then those have all been ironed out, and it seems to be working pretty well right now.
Ender IO's main thing, you could take everything out of Ender IO except for the transportation, and the thing that Ender IO does that nobody else does is multiple pipes in the same block. So I can run liquid, items, electricity, redstone signal, all in the same block, all perfectly fine.
That's fantastic. I'll have to try that next time I try Minecraft. I'll just pick up Karma.
Yeah, just pick up Karma. It's on the AT launcher. Hey, thank you.
And what was the other one? Of course, Applied Energistics is kind of
yes,
a wonderful cornerstone. And I liked the old Buildcraft quarries just because of the way they operated. They aren't very efficient for a server is the only problem with them. But any kind of resource extraction mod is obviously key. I mean, Big Reactors does take up depending on how you configure your server, it either takes up a fair amount of resources or a lot of resources.
Right.
At least what I consider a lot of resources.
I've never built a big reactor where I've had applied energistics actually touch the reactor. What I usually do is have it remoted into ender chests, and then have the ender chests send the stuff out, and then I usually have my reactors pumping into some type of energy storage that is then powering something. So it's I understand, yeah. So I can understand easily how it would work. You have an export bus exporting your yellorium ingots into the reactor and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I have little test worlds and test instances that I use for trying things out. And yeah, I do actually have applied energistics exporting directly into the reactor and importing directly from the reactor's outlet port.
Right. Okay, so what plans do you have for continued expansion of big reactors? What's the future?
So okay, obviously it's contingent on the amount of time that I have, which is
right.
As you may have, as people may have noticed in the past few months, is my development velocity has not been amazing, and I do want to apologize to everyone who likes big reactors for that. But so the next big thing is the 0.5 release, which is what I'm going to consider big reactors quote unquote feature complete.
Okay.
In that it has all the pieces that I originally envisioned when I originally thought of the mod, and the big thing for that is a heat exchanger.
Okay.
And if you've worked on a nuclear reactor, you've seen it's like, okay, you don't just pipe water from a reactor into a turbine. That's silly.
Right.
And everyone, people still yell at me for that. And it's like, okay, yes, I understand. It's like it's supposed to go through heat exchanger.
Right.
But the idea is that you'll be able to put fluids into the reactor that aren't just water. So you'll be able to put like cryothium into the reactor as the way you put water into it now, and pump out some superheated fluid, or some fluid that represents extremely high temperature fluid.
So we can do salts or something like that.
Sorry.
So
where were we?
I think we were talking about peace in our time, and
peace in our time.
Yeah, and how we had found a way to make Israeli and Palestinian peace to start a wave of peace that would go across the entire world. Was that where we were at?
I think that we were talking about that. I think the way that they can do that is by playing Minecraft together.
I believe that you're absolutely right. So we have just solved world peace with Minecraft.
Between their two cultures.
I totally agree. All right. What's great is that actually that's not a bad thing that just happened, because we can actually segue straight into questions from the audience. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, if you don't know, there's a 20-second lag between what I say and what they're able to talk to. So we're going to have to sit here and wait for the questions to start coming across. So, guys and gals...
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I'm
guys,
sure in a couple of seconds these will have some fantastic questions for us.
I'm sure that we will. Guys and gals, it's time to go ahead and do the question from
users, viewers. You can tell that you're the streamer and I'm not.
This right here is where we're going to do question and answers. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Erogenous Beef about big reactors or anything that you would like to know, I would love to hear from you guys right now. So go ahead and ask away. All right, so the question has been asked. Let's see how long it takes them to ask the questions here. Salaru would like to know if you have any pets.
I do not, actually. I travel a lot for work. It would be pretty cruel to have to my pets to actually subject them to that.
Right.
I grew up with cats, though. I was a cat person growing up.
So you're a cat guy. Awesome. We have 2 cats and 1 doge here.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Come on, people. Let's get on with the questions. It usually, when a channel dumps like that, it usually a lot of your viewers would dump with it because they don't all come right back. So we may have lost like half of the people that were watching. So.
We could take our time.
Yeah.
Refresh your screens.
Yeah. That's another big one. Is you have to, after a channel dumps, you have to refresh the stream and stuff like that. So that's a good thing that I wanted to get into, and I'm glad that somebody kind of mentioned it with Asanium has mentioned. Are you going to build in the ability for reactors to blow up and warning systems or anything like that? Have you any plans along those lines?
Yes. So I maintain a public roadmap. It's not always updated. It's not always current with my current thinking, but that has been on that roadmap for a very long time. I always wanted to make it interesting, though. I didn't want it to just be like, oh, don't let it get this hot and then it blows up.
Right.
I kind of wanted to. I haven't really figured out how. The reason that it's not in yet is I haven't figured out a way to make it fun, as well as devastating. So it's really easy to just put like, oh, if it goes above 2,000 centigrade, just leave a big crater in the world.
Or in somebody's base.
Right, or in someone's base. But I want to make it like an interesting challenge, and so it's you don't have this fear of like, oh, if I turn my reactor on here, is it just going to blow up everything I've ever constructed? I would like to have have the meltdowns be kind of a not only a problem but an interesting problem to solve. So if there is a meltdown, how do you clean it up? How do you cope with the fact that your reactor has just melted down? Just leaving a big crater in the world is not satisfactory for me. So
that sounds like a lot of fun. It really does.
It's one of those things where once I figured out like a good gameplay mechanic, a good way to create a problem for the user to solve that's fun and can be addressed in multiple ways, then I think I'll put it in.
Okay, and also make it configurable so you could turn that stuff off if you wanted to, and so on and so forth.
So yeah, that's absolutely. So I've always said that if when I put meltdowns in, there will be a config switch that says meltdowns can't happen. So if you don't find it fun, just turn it off.
And hold on. And if you see any questions that I don't catch and you want to answer, I don't know if you're watching chat.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead and just blurt out the answers and go for it. Okay.
So a couple quick ones. Will there ever be a better liquid to cool the reactor within Cryothium? So skipping over the meaning of the word better. I do want to introduce other fluids that can go both into the interior of the reactor. I call it moderator, even though it's because that's what I call it. But also, I also want to make it so that there are other liquids that can be put in as opposed to just water. And that's for 0.5 actually. So that's the next big release. That's what I'm working on.
What are those liquids? I mean, what exactly is it going to do? Because right now, like the only time I pump water into my reactor is because it's a passive reactor that's shooting out steam to my steam turbines, which makes completely logical sense to me. What are these other liquids? And are you talking about pumping them in, meaning where you do the Cryothium around the cells, or are you talking about pumping them in like you pump the water in?
So like the water. So you'll have an input-output port. Just like it'll be the same one that you have now, and basically just when the new version comes, what you'll be able to do is put Cryothium into that port as opposed to just water, and then the outlet port you'll get something else, probably Pyrothium for Cryothium, and then for other fluids there'll be other what I call them fluid pairs. So water, steam, Cryothium, Pyrothium, and that will go into, as opposed to going to the turbine, will go to a heat exchanger. The design of the heat exchanger will tell you how efficient it is and how fast it works. The size of the heat exchanger will also also matter. But then what the heat exchanger will do is it will pump out either some kind of configurable type of steam, and that's basically going to be steam, and then steam that carries powers of 10 more energy.
Okay.
Super compressed steam, ultra compressed steam, metallic steam. Into the realm of things that are ludicrous, like quark gluon steam. Or something like that. Something that sounds cool and sciencey, but also, obviously ludicrous. Ludicrous steam.
Ludicrous, like a ludicrite rock, a ludicrous
exactly.
stream.
Ludicrous steam. It's just I love Spaceballs, so
yeah,
ludicrous
I know,
steam
baby.
comes out, and that you pump into the turbine. And when people say, "Oh, how do I get more power out of my turbine if I only have if you can only have 2,000 millibuckets per tick?" That's the answer for you. Yeah. It's like pump out 5 units of ludicrous steam and you're done.
So Dirty Grinch has asked, in my opinion, I would say that between Resonant Ender and Cryothium is no different. When I want to reduce the casing heat, why?
There's a lot of different ways to answer that question. I actually have no idea. So it's going to be dependent on how your reactor works. So if you have 2 fuel rods that are fairly close together, they will actually basically invisibly shoot radiation at each other, and that boosts their power output, which also means it'll boost their heat output.
Which means that you're going to have something more efficient to cool it because it's producing more heat.
Now, the difference is that Liquid Ender is basically like sticking a lead wall in there. It stops everything from going through, and it converts a substantial but not a huge amount of the power that it stops directly into casing heat, so that the energy that you cool with with water, or the energy that gets converted into directly into RF if you're a passive reactor. Whereas Cryothium is a little bit more transparent, but it is both more efficient for cooling the central fuel rods, and also converts slightly more of the energy that passes through it into that casing heat. So if when you want to reduce casing heat, you pretty much want to have the same number of fuel rods, the same number of fuel rods inside, the same amount of fuel inside, but a bigger exterior to the reactor, because that gives you more surface area. It's actually based on the surface area of the exterior of the cube when you want to reduce casing heat, or you have to pump in more water. Or, of course, in 0.5, you'll pump in something cooler.
Okay, so
water.
I guess I'm personally a little bit, the only time I use water in my reactors is when I'm using it in conjunction with the steam turbine. And is that correct in that question?
That's correct. So, I mean, this comes back to what is correct. So if a passive reactor works for you, then that's all you need to build.
Right, okay.
So I try to make it so that if all you want is to make a cube that produces some energy, you can do that. That's fine. You put the fuel in, take the waste out, and you're done. Wow. But then, if you want to go a little bit more complex, you can get more energy out of the same amount of fuel. So if you don't mind dealing with the complexity of pumping water in, pumping water back out, pumping steam back out, building a turbine, which is a fairly complex machine,
right,
and then dealing with the return loop, or creating enough water that you don't have to have a return loop,
right,
then you can do that, and you'll get a bit of a reward. And if you do it well, you'll get. I think it's possible to quadruple your energy output.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
At the base settings.
Right.
Using a steam turbine, but again, it's you're adding complexity. So the whole idea behind big reactors is an optional level of complexity for each user.
The more you put in, the more you get out.
Precisely.
It's karma. What you put in is what you get out. I was playing a little word joke on the name of the mod pack there.
Indeed.
One question I did not get to on the list of questions is, do you have any new mods that you're thinking about coming out with? Is there anything new that you're planning on writing?
Not for Minecraft. So, I mean, Minecraft is fairly restrictive in what it can do, and even just making a multi-block mod is maddeningly complicated. Mm-hmm. It's really something that takes a huge amount of effort for one person to do.
Right.
And I don't have enough free time to really lead or contribute to a mod team effectively. So all of my whenever I want to do some other game development, I actually just grab one of the game engines out there and just build some stuff in that.
Right. So is it once you get to the point to where you have your feature locked, when you're done with adding features to big reactors, are you going to turn it over to a maintenance person that will upkeep the mod for future expansions of Minecraft, or is it going to die with the version that you updated to, or had you always planned on keeping it updated to the latest version of Minecraft?
So I was, if no one steps up, then I would probably just, I'd keep updating it myself as long as I'm able to. Just kind of keep it at feature parity and move it forward and use the latest interfaces, make sure it can still work with whatever the current mod is, Buildcraft 57. But, once I do get it to the 1.0 version, I'll probably step back and be like, is there anything else that I really, really want to add? And if not, I'll just be like, okay, is there anyone who wants to take over the maintenance or expand it further? I think that was the thing with Applied Energistics. The original author took it as far as he wanted to take it, and then he didn't want to do it anymore, so he turned it over to another team. And I think that's great. It's a community project.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but yes, that's completely right. We actually
it's a community project.
Yeah, we had them on the other day, and I love Algorithm. I love what he did with AE2. Great guy. I know why he decided to do what he did with Applied Energistics, and it's very understandable. So one of the questions here is, basically you just answered what Shad just asked. Is yes, you plan on continuously updating this as Minecraft updates and so on and so forth, correct? That's basically
ideally.
What that post out there. Okay.
So any specific version, I don't know. So basically, right now I'm on 1.7. 1.7.10.
Right.
0.5 will come out for 1.7.10, and that's because I previously did both a feature release and a Minecraft Forge update version at the same time, and that ended in disaster.
Oh jeez.
It took like way too way too long. Way too long to actually get it out, but it took hours upon hours of debugging work to actually. Not only did I have new features, but I also had to deal with a whole new networking system, and everything was breaking. So I basically just was like, okay, learned my lesson, update Forge on one version, then add a feature, then update Forge, then add a feature. So ideally, I want to get 0.5 out as soon as possible. I have no idea when that's going to be. But then the next version after 0.5 will be 0.6, and 0.6 will be primarily for updating Forge. Or, 0.5 comes out, and I realize that I'm 3 versions of Forge behind. It's like, oh, okay, so 0.5.1 will then be for updating the Forge.
Right. So, I hate it when I just had a question in my head, and it just literally just, boom, right as soon as I was about to talk about it, boom, flew out. There's been several questions about being able to change the shape of the reactor to either triangles or circles or squares or anything like that. And I'm going to go on top of that just because I want you to run on and talk for a while. Is there idea of possibly going into fusion reactors?
Sure, I can talk about all of that. So I think reactor cores themselves are not going, the actual, what we currently call the reactor, the gray cube that you stick the fuel into. Mm-hmm. That is probably going to remain in some kind of rectangular prism, some kind of cube shape. You can change the interior of that. That doesn't necessarily have to be a cube. It must fit inside of a cube, but it doesn't necessarily have to be one. I have had ideas for other machines that you could build, some kind of like solar power tower or something, and that would obviously not be a cube. That would be like a flat plane and then a thing that sticks up in the middle, or something like that. But these are, I'm talking wacky, way out there ideas. Like I have no real plans of how or when this would work.
Right.
Sometimes I'll just be sitting there, like I'll scribble an idea on some paper. It's like, oh, that sounds really cool, and then you make a little drawing. But as for like fusion and something like that, that's definitely something I want to look at in the future. But I want to get heat exchangers in first, and then I want to get multi-block reprocessing in. So I want to make some kind of like cyanide reprocessor that's actually multi-block, and lets you do interesting stuff there. Now that may actually come back into the idea of doing like a particle accelerator or a fusion reactor kind of a thing. Because I do think fusion reactors are cool, and like the different ideas for how to achieve fusion. Do a tokamak with magnetic containment, use inertial confinement, so maybe some kind of stellarator, would all look really cool. And there's really there's ways of doing that both look cool and are also performant for the server. Right. And then maybe there's some kind of synergy there. Like maybe you need to breed the fuel that goes into the fusion thing in the regular reactor. So then you have like you start building like a bit of a chain there. You create some gameplay there.
Yeah, and that sounds absolutely awesome. Let's see here. I'm looking for. Go ahead.
Fusion is definitely like, okay, if I manage to after I finish heat exchangers, then comes multi-block reprocessing. After multi-block reprocessing, then we're looking at particle accelerator, fusion reactor type stuff. But if I find that particle accelerator, fusion reactor type stuff fits well in with reprocessing, well, maybe I'll just merge the idea.
I'm going to kind of expand on a question that Insanium had asked, and that is along the lines of, is there a mod out there that you would like to, that you believe is missing from the modded community that you would like to see added, but you just don't have time to make, or you would like to make maybe in the future after big reactors?
So that's a difficult question. I do think, actually there is one. I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. No one's really replicated the quarry from Buildcraft in a way that is performant on a server, but also looks really cool. I think the digital miner from Mechanism is really cool, and it's great for like targeted mining, and it's a lot of fun. But I do miss leaving giant holes in the ground.
Ender Quarry with a world hole upgrade.
Oh, okay. I had not heard of it. I have seen. Was it Thaumcraft? Has like some kind of like laser that can shoots into the world and carves out big chunks of it.
Yes.
That's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, the Ender Quarry is kind of your go-to quarry now. That we've actually taken Buildcraft completely out of Karma. Doesn't mean it won't make a return, because I'm hearing good things about the robots and stuff that you can make in Buildcraft. So we ripped out Buildcraft out because we knew that we had digital miners, and we also had ender quarries. Ender quarries are modifiable in the sense that you can put a block behind it that's a world hole upgraded grade. You can put a silk touch upgrade next to it. You can put a fortune upgrade next to it. You can put speed upgrades, and all that stuff. And it doesn't. The main thing about an ender quarry is, if you don't want to dig the big hole, turns everything to dirt.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's missing then is that, that big scaffolding, something that makes it
Yes.
look big and impressive.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I love the big scaffolding that's part of Buildcraft quarries. I think that's absolutely awesome. And yes, that is missing from ender quarries, but I think it is more of a necessity thing. The whole lag issue with the Buildcraft quarries is why people went the ender quarry route. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and
Yeah.
there is a tension there. This is what I look at with big reactors too. Whenever I'm building something, it's okay. This is going to look really impressive, but how can I make it look impressive and also make it work well on the server?
Right, exactly.
How much can I decouple what's happening on the server from what's happening on the client? And if you have a thing that's running through and changing a block every couple seconds and it's visible to the user, well, yeah, unfortunately,
It's going to cause lag.
But I think there is, as computers get better, basically, and as Forge improves, I think, especially as the graphical capabilities that are exposed in Minecraft improve, we will see more and more visually impressive mods, and I think what's really missing. We have a lot of utility stuff right now, but I would like to see more stuff that's multi-block and visually impressive. That makes not only does it function cool and is it fun to play with, but it also, forces you to have like these big cool results in the world. Like, it feels integrated with the world.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, because you're talking right down my thing. Okay, the last build I did, and I'm going to try to replicate it, is I had 20 9x17 steam turbine dumbbells, like I explained to you earlier, where I had the reactor in the middle so basically it were arranged in a circle around a Draconic Evolution power core. Have you seen those yet?
I have never seen that, but I'm gonna have to Google it.
Yeah, so I had the thermal expansion, the big cables that can carry as much energy as you want. They go out and sit next to the core, and they actually beam with particles the energy to the core that sits in the middle. So I had this massive energy core in my base. We didn't get to finish it because we had to reset the server. So I'm going to try to replicate that in this one.
That sounds fantastic. That sounds like it would be really impressive.
Yeah.
I think this is actually an interesting thing. Is what I found when I was building turbines, something that I deliberately chose to, is that when people first build a thing, they want to see it moving and animating and so on.
Yes.
They want to see it working. And then as soon as they move on to something else, they want that thing to not take up any resources on their server or
Right.
on their client.
Yes.
So this is actually why in turbines you can if you use the opaque blocks, you don't see the spinning turbines and there's no performance hit.
Oh, really? So you actually don't see it at all? See, I do all my turbines with glass because I love seeing the big blenders go. I think it's awesome.
I love seeing the big blenders too as well. And there's really no performance difference on the server side between the two, but on the client side, each one of those is what's called a tile entity special renderer. It's basically a thing that draws a bunch of geometry every frame. Mm-hmm. And that actually is fairly expensive, just because of the way Minecraft is architected. I'm sure someone who is a better graphics programmer than I am could make it better, but as is, you just kind of have to be like, oh, here's a bunch of polys. Here looks like kind of like a turbine, great. But if you put 17 of these things on your screen, you're going to lose like 20 FPS.
So I'm going to go off of what Ionari has asked here and kind of add to it also. It's on a big, long question. His questions are our reactors going to be paintable in the future? And I'm going to tag onto that. Is there going to be the ability to possibly change, maybe making the item maybe a hexagonal shape for the steam turbines, to where it's not just this square block? Is there that idea? Also, he wants to know is, and this is completely separate from the first question, is where did you get your programming skills. Where did you learn? How did you start? Do you have any recommendations for people to start along those lines?
Oh, yeah, okay. So let's start with the first one. Paintable Reactors. I hadn't even thought of it, but I do like the idea. Now that we are no longer constrained by block IDs and metadata, yeah, that might be something I do in the future. I'm going to have to make a note of that, because it would be cool to have like a pink reactor or something like that.
Look into Chisel. Look into Chisel and possibly
Chisel. I've played with Chisel. Chisel is awesome.
Yeah, looking at Chisel and possibly placing your blocks in Chisel and having them be able to change the blocks in Chisel, and then, but of course that relies on you having to have Chisel as part of it. But that's an option for you.
Yeah, yeah. Chisel integration would be cool. I do like different mod integrations, and I think there's always the old standby of here's a piece of reactor and here's a rose.
A rose
anyway.
on my reactor.
Rose-colored reactor. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
It's 3% more efficient in desert. I don't know. Anyway, as for shapes are probably not going to change. That's pretty deep down in the core framework. I wouldn't. I may do machines in the future that are not, equirectangular, but the existing machines are probably going to stay the shape that they are. Programming skills. So I first started programming. Like I took a basic programming, literally a programming course in BASIC. When I say a basic programming course, I mean a programming course in the language BASIC on an Apple II machine in like middle school. So it was 6th grade or something. That's where I first started programming, and I downloaded a program off the internet called ZZT in the mid '90s. Started making little video games in there, and you could do some very basic scripting. After that, went to university, did 4 years of university, got a Bachelor of Science, Computer Science, and then just kept programming professionally after that.
So one of the things that I love about reactors is the glow. Is there any? Have you ever heard of, or is there any thought to add like a Cherenkov radiation glow to the reactors or something along those lines?
Yes, it's something I definitely want to do, and that's really a limitation of Minecraft's graphics engine.
Okay.
It's really hard to do any kind of bloom or overdraw. You don't really have. I think they might be adding shader support in like 1.8 or 1.9. I am behind the times. I haven't looked at what's going on in the latest forges, but having some kind of shader or post-process image effect support would help me do that. And if that does happen, I'd like to do that. At the very least, one of the things I have on my roadmap is to make like a particle. How like when you make a nether portal, you've got the particles that fly around.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to do something like that like flies around in the inside when the reactor is active.
You really need to look at Draconic Evolution. When you see Draconic Evolution and watch one of the videos, you're gonna go, "Oh, I'm serious, it's a heart attack, dude."
Okay, I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, Draconic Evolution with the basically an energy core. It holds in its final form when you get it up to tier 6, I think. It holds 2.4 trillion RF in it.
That is a hell of a lot.
So I ran 4 of your steam turbines, 17 by 9, 4 of them all producing 24,000 RF a tick into that ball, and it still wasn't charged. I think like 4 days later, I still had not
that
charged
is redonkulous.
Yes. So why do you need that much power? Well, why not?
At some point, you just do it for the numbers.
Exactly. It's just for the numbers. I do want to do a challenge. I got to make it a more realistic challenge of, I want to do something like a billion RF a tick challenge where I'm making that much RF a tick just for no other reason than to say, yes, I'm making that much RF a tick. But I'm actually thinking that a million may actually be too easy to do.
I have seen screenshots of people who have cranked up the power output settings, who have gone into the really weird prefixes.
Right.
So if you look at the reactors, it will say like KRF, and then it'll go into like MRF.
MRF, oh Jesus.
What's that?
I just said Jesus, MRF. Yes, good God.
It goes up beyond there. There's like Giga and Tera and so on. There's actually support for that written into the mod. I think let me see what the highest prefix I coded in was. I'm actually going to check the source code real quick. But it is up there.
So another thing, and while you're checking on that, and I think I know the answer to this, but you don't really plan on doing any ore processing besides your the waste ore processing to plutonium, whatever it is. You don't plan on doing any ore processing or anything like that, correct?
So that's actually an interesting question. Basically, when I was first starting a few weeks after I started coding this mod, I'd gone to visit a friend of mine. And I went to the technology museum in Vienna, in Austria, and they have an enormous. If you ever get a chance to go there, you'll spend 3 days in there. But they have an enormous thing that basically it's basically an entire wing on mining and ore processing. On an iron industry, and you can actually walk around inside some of the big arc reactor vessels they used to melt iron in.
Wow.
So I would love to do something like that if only I had the time.
Right, it's all about the time.
It's all about the time.
I have always liked that idea of you want more, you need a bigger machine. Mechanism is another mod that does really good at the whole. They actually have 5x ore processing.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I've done up to 3x, and really with a quarry with multiple quarries, you really don't need 5x. It's really one of those builds that you're going to build just to do the build,
Oh yeah. I mean, at some point things get ludicrous.
Right.
I mean, at the point that you're putting out 1 million RF a tick, and you're driving 5 of the mining lasers that pump out free ore, at that point you're pretty much done. Right. But you can make it bigger.
Right.
And so you should be able to. So I've got the answer on my screen now. So we've got regular RF, we've got Kilo RF, Mega RF, Giga RF, Tera RF, Peta RF, Exa RF, Zeta RF, Yoda RF, and there's one above that which is not an actual SI scale prefix. It's the HORF, what I call the Hojillion RF.
The Hojillion. Is the Yoda RF a reference to Yoda, or is that actually a number?
No, it's not an actual number. I think I was in IRC one day, and so it was like, what's the biggest RF you can have? And I said 5 Hojillion RF, just to play with them. And then so it was like, is that actually in the UI? Like, give me 5 minutes.
It's in the
real quick.
Nice.
Push it's like it's in the next version. But yes, in theory, you could create some many millions of Hojillion RF.
All right, guys. Let me just say something in channel here real quick. Guys, let's go ahead and any last minute questions you have on there. Which 2 did you add in, baby? Okay. Okay. Oh, people want to know how you came up with Erogenous Beef as your nickname.
So several years ago, I was back when League of Legends first came out. Some of my friends are playing, and I needed to create an account. And all of their names were things I can't really repeat on the channel because they're all incredibly lascivious. So I wanted to create something that was a little more subtle, but still a reference to the male reproductive organs. So I simply said, all right, well, sausage, beef, let's throw some extra words in there. Erogenous beef, it works.
You know what? That's exactly what I got when I heard your name for the very first time.
That is, yeah, that's pretty much what it's meant to be. It's like, is that really? But,
I love it, by the way.
It gets past all filters.
It does.
So it's not technically dirty.
But if you just let your mind wander, it is. It so is. All right. I think that everybody's pretty much wrapped up on their questions and stuff. I think we can go. We've gone like way over time than we normally go.
But it's been fun.
It has been a lot of fun. You and I need to hook up more often, dude. We need
Absolutely.
to do. Yeah, we definitely need to hook up more often, and maybe you and I can. Well, one of the things we always do is everybody that comes on to this to get to an interview is you're cordially invited to always come back here whenever you want. You're welcome on this TeamSpeak whenever you want to get on it. We're more than happy to talk to you. Just join the community and have fun. These are all mods in my channel and people that help out with the channel and stuff like that. But on top of that, we actually have a VIP server, and the VIP server kind of goes ups and downs depending on, we might throw a special event on it or something like that. But we do have a VIP server that is usually running the latest version of Karma. You're more than welcome to hop on that at any time and do whatever you want. All you have to do is ask for the login info, and we can get you on that also. And it'd be great to have you on there if you wanted to. I know a couple of the other people have hopped on. Pam has hopped on and stuff like that. So that offer is out there if you're looking for a place to hang out. I can't guarantee it's going to be populated, as in with other players, but it is a place for you to play Karma if you wanted to. So that's
Fantastic.
out there.
I appreciate the offer. I'm going to have to take you up on that sometime.
Yeah. Hold on. I just need to do. Hold on. Shad is typing me stuff, so give me a second. Okay. Okay. So I want to thank you. This has been one of the best interviews that we have. You are absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for such an awesome mod. And also, thank you for the future. I can't wait for meltdowns. There's nothing that I'm looking forward to than having a meltdown happen on my stream and then having to clean it up. I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm glad you're enjoying the mod, and I really thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Not something I get to do every day.
All right, man. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop you down to the lobby, and you can say hi to those guys, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
User was moved out of
All right, everybody, that was Erogenous Beef from Hold on. From Big Reactors. What a great guy. What a great interview. What great fun. Wow, you guys. That was a lot of fun, okay? And he's a great guy, and that is probably one of the best interviews that we had and stuff, you know. Do you guys want to know who is the next interview? Do you guys want to know who the next interview is? Yes, it will be uploaded to YouTube. It definitely will be uploaded to YouTube. Do you guys want to know? It was an awesome. Yeah. Do you guys want to know who the next one is? Yes or no? If you don't, I'll just let it go. I mean, it's no big deal. Mo creatures. No, it's not more creatures. Okay.